The planet Lysara had once been a jewel in the starry sky, a place of green forests, deep blue oceans, and cities that glimmered like polished gemstones. But now, darkness threatened to swallow it whole. Far beyond its atmosphere, a fleet of strange, black warships drifted in formation, moving silently like predators in the void. The Lysarans, the planet's gentle and brilliant inhabitants, were unprepared for such aggression. They had lived for centuries in peace, trading knowledge and culture across nearby star systems, never imagining that anyone would come to destroy them. At the heart of Lysara's capital, a young scientist named Talira stood in her laboratory, staring at a holographic display of the approaching fleet. Her antennae twitched nervously. The data told a story too horrible to believe. The enemy ships were massive, armed with weapons that could obliterate entire cities in minutes. Lysara's planetary defense shields were still functional, but their power was limited. Even if they managed to hold for a day, the enemy would eventually break through. Talira took a deep breath, trying to steady her thoughts. She knew what she had to do. The Lysarans had one last hope. The ancient SOS beacon, a relic from the early days of interstellar travel. It was designed to send a message across galaxies, seeking help from any species capable of coming to aid. But there was no guarantee anyone would respond. With trembling hands, Talira activated the beacon. Light flared across her lab as energy coursed through the ancient circuits. The SOS message contained the details of their plight, coordinates, the nature of the attackers, and a desperate plea for aid. "Help us, before it is too late." The message ended, repeated in a dozen universal languages. In the cold vacuum of space, the signal traveled. It passed through wormholes, drifted past planets, and crossed star systems. On Lysara, the population waited, holding their collective breath. They had not seen war before. Most had never even left their planet. Yet now their survival depended on the kindness or the strength of strangers. Meanwhile, light years away, aboard a massive Earth command ship, a team of humans monitored signals from deep space. Lieutenant Commander Mara Chen leaned over the control panel, frowning at the incoming data. Her eyes widened as the signal resolved itself. It was a distress call, a sophisticated SOS from a planet far beyond known human exploration. "Commander," said a junior officer, pointing at the display. "This is Lysara. They're under attack by an unknown fleet. Their planetary shields are at maximum, but the enemy's weapon signatures, they're enormous." Mara's mind raced. She had seen battlefields, but never something like this. Lysara was far from human territory, and no species nearby could respond quickly. But Mara knew humanity had a unique capability. The Deathworlders, elite soldiers trained for the most extreme conditions, capable of surviving environments others could not. They were humans, yes, but unlike any other humans. Ruthless in skill, yet disciplined, intelligent, and adaptable. If anyone could respond, it was them. She pressed a button, sending the message up the chain of command. "Prepare the Deathworlder fleet," she ordered. "We're going to Lysara." Back on Lysara, the situation worsened by the hour. Black streaks in the sky marked the movement of enemy ships closer to the planet. Cities on the surface began evacuation procedures, though panic spread quickly. Lysarans had never fought before. Their military forces were trained only to defend against small threats, not a massive armada capable of destroying entire regions in minutes. Talira worked frantically, monitoring both the enemy and the beacon she had sent. Hours stretched like days. Then, far in the depths of space, a new signal appeared, a reply. It was short, but unmistakable. Acknowledgement. Humans were coming. The Lysarans stared at the distant point in the stars where the signal originated, unsure what to expect. Would the humans arrive in time? And who were these strange beings that answered their desperate plea? As night fell over Lysara, the skies lit with warnings. The enemy fleet fired long-range lasers, slicing through the atmosphere and igniting clouds above major cities. Lysarans scrambled to find shelter. Fires flared in the forests. Panic was everywhere. Yet amid the chaos, Talira continued her work, maintaining communication with the incoming forces. Hours later, faint but unmistakable, massive blips appeared on Lysera's long-range sensors. Something huge was coming. They were unlike any ships the Lyserans had ever seen. Enormous silver and black vessels with sleek angular shapes that reflected light in sharp glimmers. The ships approached at incredible speed, far faster than Lyseran technology could achieve. From inside the command ship orbiting Lysera, Mara Chen watched her crew prepare. "Remember," she said, her voice steady, "we are here to protect, to defend. The Lyserans did not ask for war, they asked for help. Show them what humanity can do." Inside the human fleet, Deathworlders prepared for descent. They were armed with the latest equipment, designed for survival in environments humans had never endured. Their training had taken them to Earth's harshest deserts, jungles, and frozen wastelands. Now, they were being sent to a completely alien world, facing enemies they had never seen. Yet there was no hesitation. Every Deathworlder knew their mission: arrive, defend, and if necessary, dominate the battlefield to save the innocent. The first humans descended in orbital pods, breaking through Lysera's atmosphere like shooting stars. Lyserans watched from below, awe and fear mingling in their hearts. They had imagined saviors as gentle beings, but these humans were something else entirely. Massive, armored figures, moving with purpose, scanning the horizon with weapons. Ready? Their presence was a message in itself. Humanity had arrived, and they were not here to negotiate. They were here to fight. As the Deathworlders established a perimeter, Talira approached the nearest human commander. Though she could barely comprehend their armor and advanced technology, she understood their intent. These humans would not fail. "They will arrive soon," said the human commander in a calm voice. "We will hold them off." "Hold them off?" Talira whispered. "They are coming to destroy us completely." The commander smiled faintly, though there was no warmth in it. "Then we will make sure they do not succeed." Night turned to day, but the battle had not yet begun. From orbit, the rest of the human fleet positioned themselves strategically, analyzing enemy movements, preparing for engagement. Lysera's people, for the first time, felt something unfamiliar. Hope. Not hope of peace, but hope that someone, somewhere, was willing to face impossible odds for them. And far across the stars, the rest of humanity watched through sensors and communications arrays, waiting for news from the front. They knew Lysera was small, weak, and vulnerable, but they also knew something greater. The universe underestimated humans at their own peril. As Lysera braced for the incoming storm, Talira looked once more at the sky, at the massive shapes of the human fleet. In her heart, she whispered a simple thought: maybe we will survive. But survival was only the beginning. Humanity had arrived, and with them, a force that the universe had never truly seen before. The Deathworlders were coming, and the enemy would soon learn that some SOS calls should never have been ignored. The sky above Lysera burned with the colors of war. Streaks of light cut across the clouds, explosions flaring as the enemy fleet tested their range. The Lyserans had tried to resist, using their own ships and defensive cannons, but it had been hopeless. Their weapons were no match for the massive black warships that had appeared in orbit. Panic gripped the cities. Families hid under the glow of emergency shields, praying for some miracle, and then from the void of space, the miracle came. A massive human fleet entered Lysera's orbit, each ship gleaming like silver knives in the atmosphere. They were unlike anything the Lyserans had ever imagined. Angular, fast, and enormous, the ships moved with precision. They carried troops, weapons, and technology far beyond Lysera's comprehension. From the capital city, Talira watched the fleet through her lab's viewing screens. Her antennae twitched, a mix of awe and disbelief. They're here," she whispered, almost afraid to say it out loud. On board the leading ship, Lieutenant Commander Mara Chen observed the Lyseran planet below. The enemy fleet was scattered in orbit, preparing to strike again. Mara's expression was calm, but her mind raced. They had trained for countless scenarios, but Lysera's situation was unique. These attackers had never encountered Deathworlders before, and the humans intended to make a lasting impression. "Deploy the first wave," Mara ordered. "Ground teams, prepare for atmospheric insertion. Shield units, cover the descent." Below, massive pods detached from the fleet. Each pod cut through Lysera's atmosphere like a blazing comet, fire trailing behind them. They landed in strategic locations around the planet, near the cities under attack, and in open plains to intercept enemy forces. The ground trembled as the pods impacted, sending dust and debris flying. Lyserans who saw them from the safety of their shelters gasped. These were not gentle helpers. They were soldiers, enormous and heavily armored, moving with precision and confidence. From inside her lab, Talyra tried to steady her breathing. She had expected aid, yes, but not like this. She hurried to the surface, leaving behind her monitors, and ran toward the city's main defense center. The streets were chaotic, filled with frightened citizens and soldiers struggling to hold their lines. When she emerged into the open, her eyes widened as she saw the humans up close. The Deathworlders were imposing. They wore black and silver armor that gleamed even in the dim light of the burning city. Each carried weapons that pulsed with blue energy, clearly far more advanced than Lyseran cannons. But it was not only their weapons that terrified and awed the Lyserans. It was the aura of confidence, of control that they radiated. One of the Deathworlders, a tall figure with piercing eyes, approached Talyra without hesitation. His voice, though modulated by his helmet, was calm and firm. "You are safe now," he said. "We will stop them." Talyra felt a surge of hope. You can really do it?" she asked, barely able to keep her voice steady. The Deathworlder nodded. "We do not retreat. We do not fail. Follow our instructions, and you will survive." Meanwhile, across the city and the surrounding plains, the Deathworlders deployed in perfect coordination. Some took up defensive positions, erecting energy shields that glimmered like crystal walls. Others moved toward enemy ships that had landed troops, engaging them directly. Lysaran soldiers watched in awe as the humans moved, anticipating enemy strikes before they happened, responding with incredible speed and strength. The enemy was shocked. They had expected weak, primitive resistance, easily crushed. Instead, they encountered warriors unlike any they had seen. The humans fought with precision and adaptability, using Lysara's terrain to their advantage. Hills became defensive positions. Forests hid sniper units. Rivers were crossed with advanced equipment that left enemies bewildered. Talyra followed the humans as they pushed back the first wave of enemy troops. She saw one human leap from a rocky outcrop onto an approaching vehicle, disabling it in moments with a pulse weapon. Another human threw a device that released a field of energy, stopping an entire squad of enemy soldiers in their tracks. Every move was calculated, every action effective. In the chaos, Talyra realized the humans were not just fighters, they were teachers. They showed Lysaran soldiers how to move, where to place defenses, and how to anticipate enemy tactics. In hours, what had been a panicked, disorganized resistance began to form a structured defense. High above, Mara Chen watched the battle from orbit. Communications with ground units were constant. She observed enemy ship movements, giving instructions for the humans below to intercept or prepare counterattacks. Her tactical mind had trained her for battles on Earth, but this was different. It was alien, unpredictable, and dangerous. Yet, it was exactly the kind of challenge Deathworlders thrived on. Back on the surface, Talyra saw the first signs of hope. Enemy forces were retreating from areas where the humans had concentrated their defense. The streets, though damaged, were no longer overrun. Fires still burned, but emergency crews, guided by the Deathworlders, began to extinguish them. Civilians peered from shelters, watching the humans move with calm determination. One small boy, clutching his mother's hand, whispered, "Are they gods?" Talyra shook her head, smiling despite the destruction around them. No, they're humans, but humans unlike any we've seen before. The enemy fleet, realizing that Lysara's defenses were not collapsing as expected, began to regroup. They called in reinforcements, larger warships moving closer to the planet's surface. The humans anticipated this. Deathworlders communicated, silently using hand signals and quick glances, moving units into positions that would surprise the enemy. The first major clash came in the plains outside the capital. Enemy vehicles and troops charged toward a human defensive line, expecting easy victory. Instead, they were met with coordinated fire, energy shields, and ground maneuvers that seemed impossible. Vehicles were flipped, weapons disabled, and enemy troops forced to retreat. Human soldiers adapted to every change in enemy tactics almost instantly, their training and intuition unmatched. Talira watched, heart pounding, as one group of Deathworlders faced a heavily armed enemy vehicle. The vehicle fired relentlessly, but the humans moved with speed and precision, dodging blasts, placing devices that disrupted the enemy's systems. In moments, the vehicle was disabled. Lysarans gasped in amazement. The humans were not only powerful, they were creative. They used Lysara's own terrain against the invaders, turning rivers into traps and forests into camouflage. The enemy had no idea how to respond to these tactics. Every attack was countered before it could succeed. Hours passed, and the first signs of exhaustion showed on the enemy's side. The Deathworlders, however, remained focused, relentless. Their presence alone inspired the Lysarans. Soldiers who had been frozen with fear now fought alongside humans, learning quickly, adapting to new tactics, and regaining hope for the first time. At night, Talira returned to the command center. The city was scarred, but the worst was over. Fires were being put out. Civilians were safe in shelters, and enemy forces had temporarily retreated. She watched the humans coordinate with the city's leaders, repairing defenses and preparing for the next wave. One of the Deathworlders approached her. "We will hold them," he said simply, "but the enemy will return. They are strong, but we are stronger together." Talira nodded, feeling a warmth she had not felt in days. For the first time since the invasion began, she truly believed they might survive. She looked out at the human soldiers at the pods scattered across the city and realized something profound. These were not just helpers. These were protectors, warriors, and guides. They were humanity's answer to impossible odds. Above them, in orbit, Mara Chen observed the horizon. The enemy fleet had pulled back temporarily, regrouping for a larger strike. But she was unconcerned. Humanity had arrived, and Deathworlders thrived where others would fail. They would not let Lysara fall. The night on Lysara was quiet, almost peaceful, but the calm was deceptive. The enemy would return stronger and more determined. Yet below, the citizens slept with hope, and the Deathworlders patrolled the streets ever vigilant. Talira knew that the days ahead would be hard, but with humans by their side there was a chance, and in the shadows, waiting in orbit, the enemy fleet prepared to test the Deathworlders again. But no one, not even the attackers, realized that they were facing something far more dangerous than any technology, weapon, or army. They were facing humanity, and the Deathworlders would not fail. The next morning, Lysara's horizon was filled with smoke and light. The enemy fleet had returned, larger and more determined than before. Their warships glimmered ominously in the sky, casting long shadows over the cities and plains below. Lysarans could feel the tension in the air, a mixture of fear and anticipation. In the capital, Talira stood at the top of a tall observation tower, watching the enemy's approach. Her antennae twitched nervously, but her heart was steadier than the day before. Humanity had arrived, and the Deathworlders were already in position. She knew that despite the overwhelming odds, they had a chance. From orbit, Mara Chen monitored every movement. "All units, prepare for engagement," she ordered. "This will be their main assault. We hold them here, or Lysara falls. No exceptions." The Deathworlders, stationed across key points on the planet's surface, braced themselves. Some were in the cities, ready to protect civilians. Others were on the plains, ready to intercept incoming troops and vehicles. Advanced energy shields shimmered along the borders, and automated defense systems hummed to life. The humans moved with a silent, coordinated precision that spoke of countless drills and impossible training. The enemy opened the battle with AIs, barrage of energy beams from their warships. Explosions rippled across the plains, shaking buildings and sending debris flying. Lycerans screamed and ducked for cover, but the Deathworlders advanced steadily. They moved as if untouched by the chaos, taking cover behind structures, rolling over debris and firing their pulse weapons with deadly accuracy. One group of enemy tanks charged across the plains, their weapons aimed at a village in the distance. A squad of Deathworlders intercepted them. They split into 3 teams, flanking the tanks from both sides while one unit deployed an energy net that immobilized the vehicles. The tanks fired blindly, their beams scattering harmlessly against the shields. In minutes, the Deathworlders disabled every vehicle and captured the enemy crew. Talira could hardly believe her eyes. The humans fought like legends, and the Lyceran soldiers began to regain courage. Some of them joined the humans on the battlefield, carrying their own weapons but now using strategies and tactics taught by the Deathworlders. Villagers peered out from cover, their faces showing hope for the first time in days. Above the cities, enemy warships moved closer to the ground. Mara Chen tracked their patterns from orbit and coordinated strikes. Humans in aerial pods launched rapid attacks, striking the enemy ships with precision explosives and returning safely to their stations. Lycerans had never seen anything like it. Their own defensive ships had been ineffective, but these humans treated battle like a dance, fast, calculated, and deadly. In one narrow canyon, a massive enemy vehicle advanced, carrying dozens of soldiers. 2 Deathworlders positioned themselves strategically. One jumped from a ledge, landing perfectly atop the vehicle and disabling its systems with a powerful pulse weapon. The second rolled under it, planting energy charges that would detonate, on command. When the explosion came, the vehicle flipped, scattering enemy troops in all directions. Lyceran witnesses could only stare in disbelief. The battlefield shifted constantly. The humans adapted instantly to every new threat. When enemy forces tried to ambush them in the forest, the Deathworlders split into smaller teams, surrounding the attackers and cutting off their escape. When energy beams threatened to destroy a city district, humans coordinated shields and counterfire, saving countless lives. Talira moved through the city with the Deathworlders, helping civilians reach safety. She saw one human carry a terrified, Lyceran child out of danger, their armored arms seeming gentle despite their massive strength. Another human helped repair a collapsed bridge in minutes, allowing reinforcements to move freely. The Lycerans could hardly believe that being so powerful could also show care and precision at the same time. Hours into the battle, the enemy tried a different tactic. Massive energy bombs were dropped on the plains where humans had set defensive lines. Explosions shook the ground, fire consuming large areas of forest and grasslands. But the humans were ready. Advanced shields absorbed the impact, and countermeasures neutralized the remaining blasts. They moved forward, engaging enemy squads who had survived the initial destruction. Each human was like a force of nature, unyielding and relentless. In one dramatic confrontation, an enemy commander emerged on the battlefield, a towering figure in dark armor, leading troops with calculated precision. The Deathworlders responded immediately. Mara Chen directed a group of elite units to intercept him. They moved swiftly, combining advanced weaponry with superior tactics. In moments, the enemy commander was surrounded, his forces cut off. Despite his skill, he could not escape the humans' coordinated attack. By the end of the skirmish, the enemy commander lay defeated, and his soldiers surrendered. The Lycerans began to cheer. Their despair was turning into hope into determination. Humans had not only arrived, they were teaching, protecting, and leading. Every city saved, every troop defeated, every strategy executed perfectly reinforced the message. Humanity was a force beyond imagination, but the battle was far from over. Enemy reinforcements continued to pour from orbit, more massive warships appearing like dark shadows across the sky. Mara Chen coordinated strikes, using advanced sensors to predict their movements. She called for reinforcements from the Deathworlder fleet in orbit, deploying rapid response teams to areas under attack. The humans moved like a single organism, every unit knowing exactly what to do. On the ground, Talira witnessed the enemy adapting. They began using guerrilla tactics, attacking from unexpected angles, setting traps and trying to overwhelm the humans with sheer numbers. But the Deathworlders were prepared. They anticipated every move, countering with precision and intelligence. Enemy forces faltered again and again, their confidence shattered by human efficiency and adaptability. One particularly dangerous enemy vehicle advanced toward a Lyceran hospital. A team of Deathworlders responded immediately. They deployed energy, nets to stop the vehicle, while others neutralized the enemy soldiers. The hospital remained intact, the patients safe. Talira felt tears in her eyes, realizing the humans were not just fighting. They were saving lives, protecting innocents even in the midst of chaos. As night fell, the battlefield glowed with fire and energy beams. The Lycerans had begun to understand something profound. Humans did not fight for conquest, for glory, or for revenge. They fought to protect. Every maneuver, every strike, every shield deployed was calculated to preserve life and defeat the enemy. Lysara's people felt a deep respect, awe, and gratitude. Mara Chen observed the battlefield from orbit. She knew the enemy was strong, but she also knew her Deathworlders would not fail. "Hold your positions," she ordered. "Tomorrow, we push them back completely." On the ground, Talira moved with the Deathworlders, seeing firsthand how they worked. One human disarmed a trapped building, saving dozens of Lycerans. Another led a group of civilians through a dangerous area, dodging enemy fire with skill and precision. Lycerans watched in amazement. These humans were unlike any beings they had known. Strong, intelligent, adaptive, and compassionate. Hours. Later, the enemy began to retreat. They had suffered heavy losses, their morale broken by humans who were faster, smarter, and stronger. Lysara's cities were battered but standing. The Deathworlders maintained defensive positions, ready for the next assault. The planet had survived the first full day of battle. Talira finally allowed herself a moment of relief. She looked at the humans around her, exhausted but vigilant. I cannot believe what I am seeing," she whispered. "We would have been destroyed without them." One Deathworlder turned to her. "You are learning quickly," he said, "and you will need every lesson. The enemy will return, and next time they may come with even greater strength. But we will be here." The Lysarans began to understand the true nature of their saviors. These humans were not only warriors, they were leaders, protectors, and teachers. Humanity had arrived on Lysara, and the battle had shown that even in the darkest hour there was hope. Above the planet, Mara Chen watched the enemy retreat into space. She knew the victory was temporary. More challenges would come, stronger threats and larger fleets. But she also knew that humanity had proven something vital. No force in the galaxy could underestimate them. Deathworlders adapted, endured, and conquered against impossible odds. As night settled over Lysara, the fires of battle still burned, but the planet was alive. Civilians emerged from shelters, cheering quietly, helping each other rebuild and gazing at the humans with awe and respect. Talira looked at the sky, at the armored figures patrolling the streets, and thought, "These are our protectors, our guardians, our hope." And somewhere in the stars, the enemy fleet regrouped, unaware that they had encountered something they could neither predict nor defeat easily. Humanity had arrived, and the universe would never be the same. The morning sky over Lysara was pale and quiet, a sharp contrast to the chaos of the previous day. The fires had died down, but the scars of battle were everywhere. Cities were partially destroyed, forests had burned, and the air was thick with smoke. Yet the Lysarans felt something new: hope. Humanity had held the enemy back, and the Deathworlders were still on the planet, preparing for what would come next. In the capital, Talira walked among the survivors, helping where she could. She distributed food, guided people to safe areas, and coordinated repairs to essential systems. She had learned much from the humans in just a short time. Their discipline, strategy, and unwavering courage were contagious. Every human soldier she encountered seemed focused, calm, and ready, regardless of the danger around them. "Today we strike back," Mara Chen announced over the communication system, her voice calm but commanding. "We will not only defend Lysera, we will reclaim the ground the enemy has tried to take. Everyone prepare for coordinated offensive operations. This is the turning point." On the plains outside the capital, Deathworlders were already moving into position. They set up energy barriers to protect key routes, established observation points to monitor enemy movements, and coordinated with Lyceran soldiers who had learned quickly under human guidance. The Lycerans had become more than passive observers. They were active participants in the defense and the coming counterattack. Talira watched as a human commander organized squads into units that could respond to multiple threats simultaneously. Each group had a clear purpose. One would engage the enemy directly, another would protect civilians, and a third would flank the enemy from unexpected directions. The humans' ability to strategize under pressure amazed her. By mid-morning, the enemy fleet returned. They were larger this time, bringing reinforcements from nearby star systems. Massive warships hovered above Lysera, and thousands of enemy troops advanced on the plains and cities. Their confidence was evident. They believed the humans would be just another obstacle to destroy, but the Deathworlders were ready. The first strike came from human squads in elevated positions. They fired pulse weapons that disabled enemy vehicles and created chaos among advancing troops. Energy barriers cut off paths of retreat, forcing the enemy into vulnerable positions. Lysaran soldiers, following the humans' guidance, moved strategically, setting traps and covering critical points. In one of the cities, Talira watched a group of humans use advanced devices to repair and strengthen damaged buildings. They reinforced shelters and hospitals, allowing civilians to remain safely within the city while the battle raged outside. Humans moved through the streets like shadows, fast and precise, eliminating threats without harming the structures or the people around them. Meanwhile, Mara Chen coordinated orbital strikes. Small pods launched from the human fleet, hitting enemy reinforcements before they could land. Explosions erupted across the plains, but the Deathworlders had planned for every possibility. They had mapped escape routes for civilians and strategically positioned Lysaran soldiers to avoid collateral damage. One particularly massive enemy vehicle advanced toward a Lysaran school, its weapons charged and ready to fire. A squad of Deathworlders intercepted it. Using coordinated maneuvers, one human disabled the vehicle's navigation system, while another placed energy charges on its armor. The vehicle erupted in flames, but not before the civilians inside the school were safely evacuated. Talira's heart raced as she watched. Humanity was not only fighting, they were saving lives while defeating enemies. As the battle spread across Lysera, the humans demonstrated extraordinary adaptability. When enemy troops tried to hide in forests, the Deathworlders used drones to detect heat signatures, surrounding the enemy and forcing them into surrender. When attackers attempted to destroy bridges and supply routes, humans deployed rapid repairs and protective shields, ensuring that reinforcements could move freely. Talira moved with one group of Deathworlders through a valley under heavy fire. She was amazed at their coordination. One human would provide covering fire while another advanced, flanking the enemy. When they reached a group of trapped Lysaran soldiers, the Deathworlders quickly assessed the situation and freed them without a single casualty. The Lyserans' morale soared. For the first time, they felt that victory was possible. High above, Mara Chen observed enemy movements with sharp precision. She noticed that the enemy was relying on repeated tactics, underestimating the humans' intelligence. "Target their command ships," she instructed. "Cut off their coordination and the rest will crumble." Deathworlder teams moved swiftly. Using grappling devices and energy projectors, they reached the enemy command ships, disabling weapons and communication systems. Enemy forces on the ground were suddenly without guidance. Confusion spread quickly, their formation breaking down as human squads pressed their advantage. The turning point came in a massive open plain outside the capital. Thousands of enemy troops had gathered for a final, overwhelming assault. Mara Chen directed the Deathworlders into a pincer movement, attacking from multiple sides simultaneously. Lysaran soldiers inspired by human bravery joined in, providing support and guiding civilians away from danger. The clash was intense. Energy beams lit the sky, explosions shook the ground, and the roar of combat filled the air. The Deathworlders advanced relentlessly, using terrain, speed, and intelligence to overcome every obstacle. Enemy forces tried desperate maneuvers, but humans anticipated them at every turn. Vehicles were flipped, squads neutralized, and heavy artillery destroyed. In the heart of the battlefield, Talira saw the enemy's morale breaking. Soldiers began to retreat, some surrendering as humans approached. The Deathworlders did not pursue recklessly. They maintained control, ensuring that no Lysaran lives were lost in the process. Humanity's combination of force and discipline created a power unlike anything the enemy had expected. By evening, the plains were quiet again, littered with remnants of enemy vehicles and fallen drones. The surviving attackers fled toward orbit, their confidence shattered. Lysara's cities had been defended and the plains reclaimed. Talira walked among the people, witnessing the relief and joy in their eyes. Humans had not only held the line, they had reversed the tide of battle. Mara Chen monitored the battlefield from orbit. "Good work," she said over the communication system. "The enemy is retreating, but this is only a temporary victory. Prepare for further attacks. Reinforcements will arrive, but we will be ready." The Lysarans began to rebuild immediately, guided by human instructions. Bridges were repaired, hospitals reinforced, and energy shields extended over cities. Humans worked alongside them, sharing knowledge and technology. Lysarans marveled at their ability to organize quickly and effectively, turning chaos into order. Talira realized something profound. Humans were more than warriors. They were leaders, teachers, and protectors. Every action they took combined intelligence, courage, and compassion. They had not only defended Lysara, they had shown its people the meaning of hope, resilience, and strength. As night fell, the sky was still marked with the glow of battle debris, but Lysara was alive. The Deathworlders patrolled cities and strategic points, ensuring safety and maintaining order. Civilians emerged from shelters helping one another, inspired by the humans' courage. Talira looked at Mara Chen's team on the streets and whispered, "We owe them everything. Without them, we would not have survived." One human commander turned to her. "You survived because you fought, and because you followed our guidance. Together, we are stronger than the enemy. Remember this lesson. It will serve you well in the days ahead." In orbit, Mara Chen observed the horizon, aware that more challenges would come. The enemy would regroup, larger forces would arrive, and new strategies would be attempted. But she also knew this. The turning point had been reached. Humanity had proven that no matter the odds, with strategy, courage, and discipline, they could overcome even the most powerful adversaries. Talira gazed at the humans around her, at their armor, their weapons, and their calm determination. She understood that these beings were not just warriors. They were a force unlike any other in the universe. Lysara had been saved today, but the lesson was clear. Humans were unpredictable, adaptive, and relentless, and the enemy would soon learn that underestimating them was a fatal mistake. As the night settled over Lysara, the people slept more peacefully. For the first time in days, they believed that they would survive, that they could rebuild, and that they were not alone. Humanity had arrived, had fought, and had turned the tide. And far above, in orbit, Mara Chen prepared for whatever would come next, confident that the Deathworlders could handle anything. The battle was not over, but Lysara had seen the power of humans, and that knowledge would echo across the planet and beyond for generations. The sun rose over Lysara, casting golden light across cities that bore the scars of battle. Smoke still drifted from burned forests, and rubble marked streets where once vibrant buildings had stood. But the planet was alive, and for the first time in days its people could breathe without fear. Humanity had turned the tide, and the Deathworlders were still present, ensuring that no enemy could strike again. Talira walked among the survivors, her steps careful over broken stones and shattered glass. She had seen the power of humans firsthand, their strength, strategy, and fearlessness. But more than that, she had seen something unexpected, their compassion. They had fought with precision, yes, but they had also protected civilians, healed the injured, and guided Lycerans through the chaos. In just a few days, humans had taught her people lessons that would last generations. Nearby, a team of Deathworlders worked with Lyceran engineers to repair critical infrastructure. Energy shields were extended over the cities, and communication systems were restored. Hospitals, schools, and public buildings were repaired and reinforced, not just with Lyceran technology but with human devices as well. Talira watched in awe as humans moved with efficiency, coordinating multiple tasks at once without error. Mara Chen observed the progress from orbit. She knew that the enemy had retreated, but she also knew they would not give up easily. Reinforcements could arrive at any time, and new threats could appear from distant star systems. Still, she was confident in the Deathworlders' abilities. Humanity had shown that it could not only survive impossible odds, but also teach others to adapt and thrive in adversity. Commander, a young Lyceran officer approached Talira. We still do not understand how they fight. They seem unstoppable. Talira shook her head, smiling faintly. It is not just strength. It is their strategy, their discipline, and their willingness to protect others. That is what makes them dangerous to enemies, and a blessing to us. Across the plains, the Deathworlders continued to patrol. Some trained Lyceran soldiers in advanced combat tactics, while others maintained defensive positions in key areas. Humans shared knowledge openly, showing the Lycerans how to anticipate attacks, use terrain effectively, and coordinate movements in ways their society had never considered. The Lycerans were learning quickly, gaining skills that would make their planet safer in the years to come. By midday, the first groups of enemy scouts were detected in orbit. Mara Chen immediately deployed rapid response teams, intercepting them before they could reach the planet. The Deathworlders engaged with precision, neutralizing enemy ships without allowing damage to Lycera. From the ground, Talira watched as humans worked seamlessly, almost as if the enemy had no chance at all. The day passed without major conflict, but preparations continued. Talira and human commanders organized defensive networks, combining Lyceran sensors with advanced human technology. The cities were reinforced, evacuation routes marked, and emergency systems upgraded. Humans worked tirelessly, showing no signs of fatigue while Lycerans assisted wherever they could. During a break, Talira finally had a moment to speak with one of the Deathworlders. He was massive, his armor gleaming, yet there was a calm in his eyes. "You have changed our world in a few days," she said. "I do not know how to thank you." He shook his head. "We do not seek thanks. We fight because it is right. Your people asked for help and we answered. That is enough." Talira nodded, feeling the weight of his words. Humans were not like other species she had known. They fought, survived, and thrived, but they did so with purpose, and that purpose had saved Lycera. As evening fell, Talira walked through a part of the city still damaged by the earlier battles. Children played cautiously among the rubble, laughing despite the destruction. Their parents smiled and worked with the humans to repair homes and streets. For the first time in days, there was laughter and hope in the air. Mara Chen gathered her senior officers for a briefing. "The enemy has retreated far into space, but this is not the end," she said. "They will attempt to return. We must be ready. However, Lycera has a chance to rebuild stronger than before. Humans have shown their power, but we also leave them with knowledge, and that knowledge will protect them." On the surface, Talira and the Deathworlders coordinated one last training session with Lyceran soldiers. They practiced defensive maneuvers, tactical retreats, and coordinated attacks. Every lesson was designed to empower the Lycerans to defend themselves if humans were ever absent. The Deathworlders wanted them to survive, not to depend entirely on human intervention. By night, the human fleet began preparations for departure. Massive ships moved into orbit, ready to leave Lysara's atmosphere. Talira felt a mixture of relief and sadness. She had come to admire these humans deeply, and their presence had become a symbol of hope and security. Mara Chen addressed the Lycerans one final time. "We are leaving because our mission is complete for now," she said. "You have survived, and you have learned. The enemy may return, but you are no longer helpless. Humanity will always be ready to respond if needed, but your strength now is yours to grow. Protect each other. Survive. Thrive." Talira bowed deeply. "Thank you. Your presence has changed our world forever." The Deathworlders boarded their ships, their movements efficient and precise. The pods that had carried them to the surface ascended back into orbit, joining the main fleet. In moments, the entire human armada departed, leaving Lysara bathed. In the soft light of evening, the Lycerans gathered in the streets and open plains, watching the stars where the humans had vanished. There was silence, then a wave of quiet cheers and applause. Talira felt tears in her eyes. The planet had survived because of humanity, and she knew that the story of this battle would be told for generations. Over the following days, Lysara began full-scale reconstruction. The Deathworlders had left behind advanced technology, shields, and knowledge that would accelerate recovery. Cities rebuilt faster than ever before. Hospitals and schools reopened, and forests were replanted. The Lycerans worked together, inspired by human bravery and guidance, determined to honor the gift they had been given. Talira often visited places where humans had been, observing small details: a reinforced bridge, a repaired hospital, a playground, shielded with energy barriers. Everywhere there were signs of the humans' presence and their care for the planet. Lycerans whispered among themselves, wondering when or if these humans would return. In the months that followed, Lysara grew stronger. The knowledge shared by humanity had transformed their society. Defense systems improved, soldiers trained faster, and citizens learned how to respond in emergencies. Trade routes were rebuilt, alliances strengthened, and the culture of cooperation inspired by humans spread throughout the planet. Talira often stood on hills overlooking the cities, thinking of the Deathworlders. Their arrival had been sudden, almost unbelievable. They had fought, protected, and taught, all in a way that no one had expected. Humanity, she realized, was more than a distant species in the stars. They were guardians, unpredictable and formidable, willing to cross light years to save those in need. And though the humans were gone, their impact remained. Lysara had survived, not just because of power, but because humans had shown them how to fight, how to protect, and how to believe in their own strength. Far above, in the silence of space, Mara Chen's fleet moved toward new missions. Another, SOS, might arrive from another planet in another system, and when it did, the Deathworlders would answer again. That was what humanity did. They fought, they survived, and they protected, no matter the odds. Back on Lysara, night fell quietly. Stars twinkled in the sky, and the people slept more peacefully than they had in weeks. Children dreamed of the humans who had saved them, while adults worked to rebuild their cities and lives. Talira stood at the edge of a hill, gazing at the horizon. She knew that the story of the humans would be remembered forever, not as conquerors, not as strangers, but as heroes. And somewhere far across the stars, humanity moved on, ready to answer the next SOS, ready to protect the helpless, and ready to show the galaxy that humans were a force beyond imagination. Lysara had been saved, its people empowered, and a new alliance had been formed. The universe had witnessed something remarkable: the arrival of Deathworlders, the courage of humanity, and the beginning of hope that no enemy could extinguish. And so, the story of the SOS that called humanity to action became legend, a tale of fear, courage, and survival. It was a reminder to all civilizations that when humans answered a call for help, they brought not only war, but hope, guidance, and strength that could not be ignored. Tellera turned to the city below, the faint glow of lights reflecting in her eyes. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "We survived, because they came. Because humans came." Above the stars, the human fleet continued its journey, silent but vigilant, leaving behind a world forever changed. Humanity had shown once again that even in the darkest hour, they could arrive, fight, protect, and inspire. Lysara would never forget them. And as the planets turned, as new stars appeared and old ones faded, one truth remained clear across the galaxy. When humanity answers a call for help, hope travels with them, and the universe is never the same again.